Loudoun County became the center of the data center economy, and the millions in tax revenue that flowed out of those giant buildings, well, it made this place the envy of communities across our area and some around the country.
We do not have the right to say no to power.
How would you feel if I told you that the electric company was coming to your house tonight to take part of your property to build a massive power pole in your backyard?
But every one of those servers needs electricity. And now Loudoun residents are learning they're nearly powerless.
The reality is that the power lines are coming. It is almost impossible to stop them.
This clash of cash and power lines, it's now hitting backyards and schools and leaving one neighborhood in this community living next door to an on-site power plant.
We had no clue that there was going to be a power plant on site.
We would very much like to shut this down as soon as we can.
All of it as Loudoun County's leadership now admits this is awfully hard to stop.
There's no question the benefit these data centers bring, but now it's starting to damage the very community that they were designed to benefit.
With hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, this fight is now quite literally in your neighbor's backyard. This is For More Context, your seat in the News 4 newsroom for a conversation about how we check facts, fight for answers, break stories, and hold each other accountable. We've been talking about the fight over data centers in Northern Virginia for a long time, but why does it feel different now, if at all?
Because we're running out of space in Ashburn and in Loudoun County to build these data centers in the places that they were meant to go. That land that's been zoned industrial has been gobbled up. There's already enough data centers there, so now we're looking to expand. We're looking to put data centers in places that they weren't designed to go into.
And whether this is a fight about the next data center, there's now fights about the ones that already exist, and specifically about getting them the power they need to run these places.
These data centers were a decade ahead of everybody else in terms of understanding what their development would eventually require. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at now. We have a lot of data centers in Northern Virginia that are finished and they're ready to go. There isn't enough electricity to turn the lights on. Basically, state regulators say they need this transmission line so bad and so quickly because it could cause maybe brownouts, maybe even blackouts in parts of Virginia. That's how urgent this crisis is. It just seems like everybody waited to do something about it until they absolutely had to, and now it might be a little too late in some cases.
How tough have the nights been in this room as you hear from people anxious, upset, angry, whatever word you want to use, about where those lines are coming?
It's been pretty tense. Dominion had to come up with, at the time, 7, now 9 brand new transmission line projects. Well, those transmission lines are going right to residential neighborhoods. And there really is no option for Dominion other than to do this to get power to primarily to the data centers in Loudoun County, and then keep grid resiliency.
Mike Turner is the vice chair of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors and a bit of an expert on how data centers affect communities. He talks about that all over the country, and thankfully with us as well. You have the right to say no?
We do not have the right to say no to power. We are a regulated monopoly state. That means that in Virginia, Dominion must by law provide power to any consumer.
This is a question of where they go, not if they come.
Correct.
That's not always easy to understand.
No, it's not. And if I were a homeowner, I would be upset with that. Why can't you, the controlling body of the local jurisdiction, be able to say, no, we don't want any power? It just happens to be the nature of the game here.
Should the General Assembly give you that power?
I drafted a motion that the board accepted and submitted in the last General Assembly session that said, please give the right to deny an application, the right to deny an application based on power considerations. It didn't even make it out of committee. It died at the
General
committee.
Assembly.
At the General Assembly, yep.
Which now means they're starting to draw these lines and they're going through people's backyards. You pointed out they want to go through schools. Right. Is that what really bugs people? That's when it hits home, the reality of this data center alley?
I think when they're going to build a power pole the size of the Statue of Liberty in someone's backyard, it gets very real very fast.
Once they come through one community, they can go through every community.
The fight now is not over whether it will happen, right? Can anyone say this power line will not be built in Virginia?
No, it's going to happen. The question is where.
The reality is that the power lines are coming. It is almost impossible to stop them. You don't have to just sit back and take it, but yes, they will come, and ultimately you're not going to stop the project completely.
You're not saying that as a guy who represents Dominion.
No.
I mean, you're saying that as a guy who fights for homeowners.
I've gone against Dominion 100 times, and I'm against Dominion right now in a dozen cases. So, yeah, the fight is how much, and also these minor modifications I can sometimes make for people.
Yeah. Paul Turpak is a Fairfax lawyer who's handled hundreds of these eminent domain cases and helped write the rules on how to handle cases like these in Virginia. He even told us about a case he's got right now trying to get the Washington Commanders an adequate payout after they couldn't stop a power line from coming across their Ashburn facility. And what do they pay you for?
They pay you for what they're taking of yours, not the benefit they're getting for the data center company. If they're taking a strip off your front yard, you get paid the fair market value of that strip off your front yard.
And can you really beat these things?
You can't beat them, you can get paid fairly, but stopping them again goes to Richmond, and yes, you can urge them to pick one alternative or another.
Data centers certainly are driving a lot of the electric growth, but this line is for everybody. This is a regional transmission line, not just hooking up one customer, not hooking up a neighborhood. This is a line that is necessary to make sure everybody in this area has power.
How worried are they that if they don't do this soon, the lights at your home and your neighbor's home is in jeopardy?
I think they're worried. Now, I will say that my experience with the power utilities is their number one criteria is grid resiliency. They are conscious all the time of what will this do to grid stability and grid resiliency for all of our customers. They cannot risk a grid shutdown.
Data centers are such a big load on the grid that they can have detrimental impact on the surrounding grid.
And so how is it then that they can, happily accept all the money that data centers bring, but then question the routes or question the construction of these lines?
I think it's a real question of, there can't be a sitting member of the Board of Supervisors who didn't see some of this coming, if not all of it coming. But the urgency by which this project seems to have feels unique. Maybe it's because of the attention, because of how close it is to a school or how close it is to the neighbor's property. But I just haven't felt the urgency for other projects that I hear from people in this one. If there are elected officials in Loudoun County who might have a little bit of egg on their face from this current situation, imagine how bad it's going to look when there's brownouts or there's blackouts because this doesn't get done.
Well, one of your colleagues just a few days ago introduced this temporary moratorium.
Right.
Support that?
Yeah, I support a moratorium. We've been told by the county attorney repeatedly that's not legal in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Should you have done that long ago?
Yes, I think probably.
Sounds like you didn't have visibility of how many there were going to be.
That's right. That's right. A quiet building spurt occurred behind the scenes. I'm not even sure county staff could have perceived it.
Any part of you willing to accept an argument that the money was too big to ignore?
That's a tough question. I'll answer it as a supervisor on the board. There is no question that the tax revenue that we've received from data centers is a demonstrable benefit to Loudoun County and our residents.
Your tax rate's going down?
Our tax rate, on average, our real property taxes are about 25% lower than any jurisdiction in the DC metro area, including Maryland.
Did that cloud your judgment?
No.
You're sure of that?
I can answer that as, I can answer that as Mike Turner. Never clouded my judgment. The assessment of, is this good for the community?
Is this really vivid proof that every action has consequence on the ground?
I mean, it's clear as day. There's no question the benefit these data centers bring, but now it's starting to damage the very community that they were designed to benefit. And if that isn't proof that massive development has a downside, I don't know what else is. And every other community in Virginia, every other community around the country that's currently discussing data centers is watching what's happening in Loudoun, and hopefully they're learning about it too.
What makes it special is it's the only one in Loudoun County, and I think in Virginia, that's not connected to the grid. And they put this there, and we feel that we were deceived
Well, why isn't it connected to the grid?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, I mean, I think
apparently there is not the capacity.
that right there is the massive Loudoun County data center that Greg Pirio lives just a tree line away from. Like so many others here in Virginia, it doesn't have electricity yet, but unlike any other in the Commonwealth, it's not waiting to open. They installed 8 natural gas turbines that churn 24/7, a constant low-level hum or a whine, depending on who you hear it from. When it comes to this power crisis, the U.S. Department of Energy says this kind of on-site generation could be part of the solution. There it is, man.
Yeah.
They don't hide it well, do they?
No.
Let me ask you, look, we hear the traffic noise. You're in the flight path of Dulles. We clearly hear the planes as they come into land. Is this not sort of a white noise, a background noise? Does it ever just sort of blend in?
No, it goes 24/7. We have set up a monitor that goes 24/7.
Wow.
And it's online. So we can all see what it is. And we can see how it fluctuates and all of that. This line here represents the 55 decibel limit.
I don't think it would surprise you to suggest that some neighbors still aren't satisfied. I'm sure they've told you the same.
We have heard from them that more can be done, and we agree with that.
John Stevenson is the Senior Vice President for Vantage Data Centers, the company that operates this facility. We spoke to him while he was traveling in Europe. He too can't wait for this place to get power. He says the lack of it was a surprise to the company as well. If you had to do this all over again, would you build the facility there, Vantage 2, the same way?
So it's important to understand that when we built our facility in Sterling, we've always intended it to be on utility power. It was the fact that the utility was not able to serve us that required us to build our self-generation power plant on the site.
My assumption is even with the turbines on site, you still would like to turn them off and connect to utility power.
That is correct. That's still the plan. It's in the hands of Virginia Dominion Power. We have not received a specific exact date, but we are hoping it comes about as soon as possible because we want to be on utility power. We would very much like to shut this down as soon as we can.
You admit this isn't a perfect solution. Certainly the neighbors don't think this is a perfect solution, but what can you do to mitigate out there?
So while our project is operating well within its permitted limits on emissions for air, for noise, we know and we've heard very clearly and loudly and directly from the neighbors that there could be a lot more that we are doing, and we get that. We've begun redesigning the site around the generation units. We've installed more sound mitigation blankets and fabrics and materials that reduce the noise.
In sum, this is not the solution to the data center crisis, what you live next to.
No. In fact, when President Trump called on the data centers to have their own power plants, that could be an absolute disaster because of all the pollution and that produced locally.
Including the noise.
Including the noise.
The U.S. Department of Energy has suggested that on-site power is part of this solution. As a company, do you believe that on-site power generation is part of the solution to this power crisis?
I think so because we do want to remain on grid power, but we've discovered that there are some locations that may not be ready or capable to serve us, or might not be moving at the speed we need to move, that we need to use on-site generation. But we do want to use grid power if that is available. We are in the business of building and running hyperscale data centers. We are not in the utility business, nor do we desire to be. We really want to use the utility where possible.
Even if the fights over where to put these power lines can be solved, the cost will still be astronomical. And as it is now, most of that cost is paid by you and I, the ratepayers. President Trump, and some in Richmond as well, suggest the data center industry should pay more of those costs themselves. And Vantage wanted to make sure we knew. They don't have a problem with that, and even offered recently to pay their share of the cost. But if I hear you correctly, you also believe that it will speed up construction of these high voltage transmission lines because it takes that cost piece off the table.
Yes, because our customers increasingly want higher capacities of digital infrastructure. They want it faster in order to meet their end users' needs. So getting the power delivered efficiently, timely is very important to us and to the regulators who have to approve these projects.
What's the original sin here?
I think the growing demand has for digital infrastructure has far exceeded anyone's expectations. And I think, being vocally self-critical, our industry could have engaged earlier in the conversations with communities about this.
Do you believe we're at a spot in Loudoun County we should stop building data centers?
I would say yes. And the reason I say that, and as a board member should, of necessity, and I think legally, assess every land application independently based on the conditions of that application. So blanket statements are not good. Let me give it in general terms. I believe that we are a mature data center market in Loudoun County. We are, I believe, the most mature data center market on planet Earth.
That's a lovely way of saying it.
And
I think some people would say it differently, but okay.
I think that's probably true. And part of the problem is that we put in place boards long before this board was ever elected, put in place, rightly and for the right reasons, rules of zoning that allowed data centers to build. And they built without any complaints from our consumers for a couple of decades.
The consequences we're seeing today, what action created them?
The people's love of data. I know that's putting it off, and that's a fuzzy answer. We have just become very, very, very data dependent to a point that no one could have possibly anticipated. And now we're having to deal with the practical, technological constraints of that demand.
I agree with your answer that the love of data has created this moment. But I do want to push back a little bit and wonder, are there actions you took as a board that in hindsight now have created this moment of confusion or anger or oversaturation or whatever it is the public is experiencing?
We, as a board and as a community, did not see that if we kept building data centers, that ultimately building data centers at the rate we were building them was going to cause a problem. That all came to a head in the summer of 22. No one had ever been denied power in Loudoun County. That was the first time that the data centers were told, you can only have 20% of your agreed to power. That had never happened before. Could we have slowed down the growth? Sure, but we would have had to have somebody say, we want you to preemptively, for no reason at all that we can discern, not raise tax revenue to the extent that you're raising it. And it's an easy thing to look back on and say, oh, you should have done that. And at the time, it made perfect sense what the boards did.
When you're traveling across the country, talking about what data centers have done in Loudoun County, what is it you wish cities and counties and states would do?
I always start off with never allow by right data center development. Certainly not within today's context. Now we know what we know. Every governing body should see a data center application right from the beginning, right from inception.
Is Loudoun a cautionary tale?
Yes, but I want to be clear when I say a cautionary tale. It doesn't mean we really made mistakes and we don't want you to make the same mistakes. Loudoun did a lot of things really well. We have managed historic tectonic shifts of growth in, I think, a very reasonable way. In recent years, yes, it's been tough slowing down the bullet train.
That train he's talking about is not slowing down. Somewhere in this country, there are about 1,500 data centers in development. Is there a breaking point? Has your community already reached it? That's a conversation that'll continue. If you like this kind of context, and we sure hope you do, there's an awful lot more of it to check out on the NBC Washington YouTube page. Like it, subscribe to it, tell us what you think in the comments. I'm Ted Oberg from the News4 team. You can find me anywhere on social at TedNBC4. And in the meantime, I'll be here, working for you.